Warren Miles Pickup here, CMO, COO with Pixel True, Pixel Copy, and Pixel Publishing. I help small and medium-sized businesses with their digital assets. Essentially, we are an organization that uses human psychology, heuristics, cognitive biases to take design beyond just being pretty to something that actually converts so that your business can generate revenue off of all of the traffic that it sends to its website.
You're watching Success, Motivation, and Inspiration, where we share interviews with incredible leaders who are crushing it in life and business.
Man, welcome back to Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. It's so good to have you on the show.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, so getting started, what inspired you to transition from being a financial advisor to becoming a CMO, COO of 3 different creative companies?
It's a great question. It was a challenging decision to make, to be honest, but I was in a position where I was out of the house every single day. I was constantly busy, stressed, and I wanted something that gravitated more towards my creative instincts. And an opportunity came up to acquire a company called Pixel True back in 2021. A friend of mine approached me and said, "Hey, would you like to do this with me?" We decided to jump on it. We were about 13 employees at the time. We've grown it to a little over 70 at this point. And I get to take everything from what I had learned working in 15 years in finance and apply it in an industry that is significantly less saturated. It doesn't have nearly the amount of marketing dollars and the sales techniques involved in it that finance does. And so we really focused on taking some of those skill sets and the ideas that are entrenched in finance and bringing them over to small and medium businesses so that they can utilize them in order to grow their businesses. I wanted to work with people that I could really help was the idea.
Now, as I was looking up, we do a lot of background research on companies and founders before we ever bring them on the show, because there are so many coaches, consultants, different folks that are basically just frauds. They'll tell you this crazy story about everything that they're accomplishing, and then get on and you start finding out even after the interview that they're not who they said they are. But as I was looking up Pixel True, Pixel Copy, and Pixel Publishing on the internet, you guys are crushing it. Just seeing the massive companies that you had worked with and the quality of your design. It's like going to a mechanic who's driving a beat up junker with a leaky oil pan. Looking at yours, you've got top notch, cutting edge sites. So that's a good sign to me that you're actually doing what you say you can do.
Thank you very much. Yes, we certainly do try. I mean, we have anywhere between 35 and 50 ongoing kind of subscription clients that are working with us at any moment. And then we're constantly bringing on new clients where we're doing large contracts with them to replace their websites, their landing pages, their digital assets, whether it's their lead magnets, any other type of marketing material that they're using as a digital asset to really take people through their marketing funnel. We want to be a lot more than just that website design agency where you come see us once, we build something for you, and then you walk away. Most of the organizations that are dealing with us are really looking for a partnership with an organization that has knowledge around how to continuously improve their sites and their digital assets to increase those conversions that are happening from the traffic that they're bringing in.
And now I was looking at your pricing, and you're obviously priced as a top tier. You're not the Fiverr or freelancer.com type of a site where somebody's going to pay one time and have a kind of hope it works. With your, I would assume, being higher tier like that, you've probably got a select type of client you work with. Explain to me kind of your perfect target client.
Yeah.
That beside, money aside, maybe describe down exactly who that person is, what they do, and what they need from a service like yours.
It's a lot of our ideal client is probably B2B. Like there are a lot of website design companies out there that are working on the e-com, the Shopify sites, those sorts of things. While we spend some time doing that, where we really thrive is in high ticket B2B sales, where an organization, company is spending a lot of money on ads, whether it be Google or Meta or any other type of advertising. They've got a lot of traffic coming to their page, and it tends to be longer sales cycle traffic, where there's a longer period that they need to gain that trust with those clients. So it's not a $50 sale. It's usually a $2,000, $15,000. We're working with an organization right now where a purchaser is $1 million sale, and they need to establish a lot of trust in that in a very short period of time when somebody is visiting their site. Those deals are worth a lot of money, and so they want to convert every single one of them. And so we're coming in and helping them to do that by utilizing heuristics and cognitive biases to do that. So it could be just about any industry. It's a lighting company that I was talking about, but it's also real estate, high value coaching, consulting. It's a lot of people selling to more complex businesses. That's what I would say is our ideal client profile.
Perfect. And then this is not really in line with the rest of the questions, but I was curious on somebody doing $1 million sale. For example, if we're processing something over $10,000, try to process in PayPal, we'll use escrow.com or some different sites for the larger transactions. Is that something you help people with as far as, I would guess a company that's hiring you probably already has their payment processing and everything set up correctly, right?
Yeah, we have organizations that if they don't have payment processing, we'll refer them to, but generally the companies that are doing that type of business already have payment processing set up, and they're using typical Visa, MasterCard. They have their own banking that they're going through, but we do have referrals for anybody if they're looking for. As an example, we do some business in the marijuana industry. And typically with marijuana products, you're not going to be able to use typical payment processing. So we have other organizations that we can refer them to help them to set up payment processing that is going to avoid some of those, get around the high risk processing issues.
Perfect. Okay. And then how do Pixel True, Pixel Copy, and Pixel Publishing work together to help entrepreneurs scale their impact?
Good question. What we found in working with Pixel True and a lot of clients is that they needed the right copy to convert people. They needed copy that evoked emotions and caused people to actually move forward with conversion. And it's great when you have a client that's very interested and engaged in writing their own copy, but a lot of the time they're just trying to tell you everything they can about why their product is so great, and they don't necessarily understand the language that they need to use to evoke the emotions to move forward to a conversion. And so we'll take a lot of that information, we'll rewrite it, and we'll build it out in a way that you're actually going to show somebody how to get the most value out of your organization and move them forward through that sales process, while also showing authority, building trust, utilizing scarcity, urgency, anchoring, avoiding single option bias, all of these different human psychology shortcuts that we have in our brain to drive them towards that conversion. What we then did is, because we had a copywriting arm and we were working with a number of coaches and consultants, they want a way to be able to build their authority, to get out, to get onto speaking circuits, those sorts of things. So we started our publishing company to work with those coaches on a collaborative coach series. And so it's a series of multi-authored books where coaches, whether they're life coaches, business coaches, relationship coaches, they'll choose a chapter in the book that we're creating, and they'll write that, and then they go out and publish, or we publish it, they go out and promote it. So it's for those individuals that aren't quite ready to write an entire book by themselves. They don't want to take on that $15,000 project for themselves. So instead, it's a much smaller price. They write the chapter. We do all of the work behind the scenes. It gets pushed out, and they have 10 or 12 other authors alongside them that are going to be driving the audience of that book together, so that they can really benefit from sharing each other's audiences and joining each other in that process. A lot of them then go on to write their own books afterwards once they've had that experience in the market.
We said a lot, and this is another area where you see a lot of scammers, a lot of people who have figured out how to kind of pick the low-hanging fruit. Uh-huh. And that's often entrepreneurs who are, or maybe even wannabe entrepreneurs, people that are just trying to get out there. They've gone through trauma, abuse, all these crazy things, and they're putting stuff on a credit card, trying to figure out how to become somebody, how to make the world see that they are somebody. Uh-huh. And they get up, pay to speak at some event, and then you've got a so-called publisher that's just uploading books to Amazon KDP, buying the ISBN. The author doesn't own the ISBN. So now that publisher, you've signed a 15-page contract, giving them the rights to basically the IP to your book. And then they make all of the royalties if you ever sell a book. Uh-huh. How is that? I'm just talking to you. I know that's not your business model there. Is there any type of a rev share or a way, do you assign, for example, if somebody's putting their book on Amazon, are you assigning the authors, setting up their own author page and linking that to the book, or is that something where it's just owned by your publishing house?
No, it's so on the collaborative coach series, the content is owned by Pixel Publishing, but there is a revenue share. So 50% of the revenue goes back to the authors and 50% goes to Pixel Publishing. If it is their own book, it's entirely owned by them. Our organization doesn't own any rights to it, anything like that. They paid for access to our services. Any revenue that's generated from that book goes directly back to them.
Awesome. And for somebody that's listening to this right now, that's been through that process of being burned by it's not actually a publisher. Somebody's just loading your book up to Kindle after they hired somebody on Fiverr to format it poorly. They got on 99 Designs and had somebody create a whole bunch of covers and picked out one that didn't look terrible. Somebody in that kind of a position that's looking at it and stressing out, going, "Oh, this is another one of those publishing guys." As I'm looking at your site, this is not something where you're stripping people's rights and that kind of stuff. Are you actually able to assign, when you go to a book page, for example, one of the books you published, a multi-author book, are you able to assign multi-author profiles?
Yeah, up to 8.
Their own Kindle?
Yeah.
Perfect.
So there are, we have books that are 15 authors, so we can't assign it to each one because of that, but we do make sure that they all get their information in the book. And then they also have about the author section within the book, which is designed to drive to their websites, all of their information. So it becomes essentially a giant business card for them. But we are very, very focused on being transparent about how all of that revenue gets dispersed. It's actually each author has their own unique code, like a sales page code that they use. So it tracks all of their own, all the traffic that they send to it, an affiliate code. And then there's a profit sharing pool. So if one of them never has any sales, as disappointing as that is, they still get access to a share of the revenue. So 20% of all of the revenue goes into a profit sharing pool that then gets paid out to those authors so that they are getting something back for it.
Cool. And I'm glad you rolled with that. It probably felt like I was throwing you on the hot seat a little bit.
No, I don't mind at all. You can throw me on as many hot seats as you want.
That's awesome. And for somebody hearing that, talking about the 50% revenue here, that's something where if you're looking at that skeptically, there are processing fees. There are fees associated with that. You're talking about merchant processing. When you're paying out, there's transactional fees based on rev share and stuff. Yep. So that's actually a very fair thing you're offering there.
Well, and we invest a lot in the editing and the design and the formatting and all of that up front, and so we're recapturing a lot of the investment that we've made in the book afterwards through that 50% rev share.
What does value first marketing mean in practice, and how can a small business start applying that today?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. I love that question. Huge advocate. So I believe that value first marketing is essentially ensuring that your prospective client, your client, always receives a greater amount of value from you first before you expect any return back from them. I'm a huge advocate. Everybody you're dealing with should be getting at least a 3 times ROI from everything they do with you versus what you're getting out of the situation. And if you do that, they will constantly return to you. They will promote you. They will share you with everybody they know because they know that they're always going to be getting more out of you than what you're getting out of them. So I advocate for education, for giving people as much information and understanding as they possibly can, knowing that we all have both a limited amount of time and a limited scope of what it is that we're really good at. And so if I tell you exactly how to do what I'm doing, you're not going to go and do it because it's not your specialty. It's not something you have time for. It's not something you have passion for. Whereas it is something that I have the time and passion for. And so if I can tell you all of my secrets, you're still going to come back to me and have me do the work for you because I'm the specialist and I'm the one that's passionate about making sure that those results actually happen.
I recently had somebody that was featured on Amazon Fire TV, Newswire magazine. They had not been featured on Newswire magazine. It was just Amazon Fire TV. But we'd done the social media marketing, the Spotify, YouTube, promoting the heck out of them on social, the dedicated landing page, optimizing the heck out of them. And the guy came back just really thankful, almost tearful with on the next follow-up call. He said, I have never had anybody do this much for me just out of the kindness of their heart to help me. I don't know. I've never met anybody like you. I can't understand why you do this. And I said, listen, that makes me feel good. I'm glad you think I'm a good guy. But the value to this is now everybody you talk to, you're going to be sharing how great, our show on Amazon TV and Newswire magazine, how great we did for you, even though you didn't pay us. So that's something Alex Hormozy talks a
Yeah.
lot about that as well.
Yeah.
With his whole goal is getting somebody to where you can make 150,000 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, 150,000 a year, so they can get to a point where they can start working with him.
Yeah.
So I love that you just said that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's worked throughout my entire career. My career in finance previously, I worked with financial advisors, and I would teach them how to be better financial advisors, how to do different financial planning, how to do portfolio construction, all the things that my organization did. And because of that, the rule of reciprocity resulted in, a lot of different sales coming my direction, and advisors referring me to other advisors and all of that. They spoke very highly of me. I won a lot of awards for it. It was incredible. And so I've just taken that same philosophy and moved it over to here. And it works incredibly well. I would advocate for it with anybody.
You talk a lot about philosophy-based selling. What does that look like in a real-world sales conversation?
It's about going to the core of what it is that you're selling and why you're selling it. So having a real understanding as to the foundation of what that sale means to the individual that you're speaking to. It's about changing the way that they operate, the way that they do things, rather than just putting a Band-Aid over a situational issue, right? All sales is essentially just solving a problem. You're providing a product, a service, whatever it may be, in order to fix something that your prospective client is experiencing, so that they can move forward with higher revenue, lower costs, whatever the primary driver of pain is. Philosophy-based selling is, rather than me just selling you this product, I'm going to sell you an entire philosophy about the way that you do things. So value-based marketing or education-based sales or whatever it may be. Once people buy into it, they tend to stick with it, much like religion or politics. Once you're in it, you're holding on to it for dear life. And so the same thing is when you're selling somebody a philosophy around why your service is your product or service is the right answer to it. People will grab onto that, and they will take that as the way to do things going forward. So, ours is human psychology driven strategic design, right? Once people understand that philosophy about why we do things differently from just making a pretty website, that's what they're looking for going forward on everything that they're going to buy for themselves for digital assets. They're going to utilize that philosophy for the way that they do things going forward.
Which kind of sucks for your competitors who try to take clients from you in the future, because now that's kind of like the original Apple versus the other competitors.
Mm-hmm.
How you'd hear the guys talking about how many megabytes of processor. I mean, this is back when processors were ridiculously low.
Yep.
But talking about the specs and all the actual details of the computer, where nobody that was not a super nerd had any clue what they were talking about. And then Apple was talking about, here's the type of person that works with us. Here's the, talking in aspirational values, as in when you feel like, okay, I want to be the cool kid. I want to be, this is the type of person I want to be. And I need to have this computer in order to make that happen. I love that. Even in copywriting, when you read something on an Apple product page versus so many other product pages where Apple is talking about the here is how this will help you. Here's how this can change your life, versus
Features.
Here's all the great stuff about us.
Yeah, it's a totally different philosophy. And those people that now have bought into Apple, like, I've got an iPhone, our whole family is on iPhones. If you were to ask anybody in my family if they wanted an Android, every single one's going to go, no. No, we've bought into the philosophy of Apple. We have bought into this concept of easy to use UI, not having to go searching for everything. This is what we want to utilize.
Expanding on what we already talked about, how does focusing on impact and service lead to stronger, longer term client relationships?
We're all in this as service providers. We are trying to provide a service to solve a problem for those people that we work with. And I think when you are focusing on how you can actually solve those problems, the impact you can have on not just their work life, but on their daily life, on their ability to accomplish their hopes and dreams, you become such an invested part of their business and a part of their life that they then return that investment in you. They then believe in what it is you're trying to accomplish, and because they've seen it firsthand. And so that focus on service and impact is really born out of a natural curiosity, a desire to know and learn as much as you possibly can about the individuals that you're working with, about your ideal client profile, about the person you're trying to solve the problem for. And having a mentality of service just endears you to those individuals, and it builds significantly deeper relationships because you're not just asking the surface question. If you have that with natural curiosity, you're going to go 3, 4, 5 steps deep to really understand the core and the root of the problem so that you can have a philosophical change around what they're doing so that their problem is truly solved rather than just slapping a Band-Aid on it.
That's powerful.
Thank you.
What are some common marketing mistakes that you see coaches and consultants make? Now, before we get into that, the major part of our business is we work with authors, entrepreneurs, motivational speakers, podcast hosts, tons of businesses. I mean, business coaches and consultants who are trying to get their name out there and really build value with their clients. So what are some common marketing mistakes that you see with coaches and consultants?
They have no product staircase. They have no way to lead somebody from free social media content to their highest value offer. There's no steps to get there. The client has no idea what to do in order to increase the amount of value that they're going to receive from the individual that they're working with, right? So they see these wonderful 3 points of what I should do to change my life today on Instagram. So they go and they click on the coach's website, and the website says something completely different because it's, the message isn't aligned to what it is that they actually do. Or they go onto the website and they have no idea as to what it is they're going to receive, how it's going to move forward, anything like that. They're searching around the website in order to book a time, or there's no CTAs, whatever it may be. There isn't a clear path to move forward. What we want to do when we're building things out from a product staircase perspective is we want to make it as easy as possible with the least amount of friction for somebody to understand exactly how they move from I saw you, free content on social media, to your high value program. I'm going to then buy this course. I'm then going to sign up for a webinar. I'm then going to attend a workshop. I'm then going to join a group. I'm then going to hire you for one-on-one coaching. You need all of that because your clients are going to come in at different comfort points. And so they need different on-ramps into your sales process so that they can get the value based on where they're ready to accept it right now. Not everybody is ready to buy a $1,000 package today. They might say, okay, well, I could probably afford $300, $400 for this. So I'm going to attend a 3-hour workshop that shows me how to implement these 3 steps. And I'm actually going to walk through how to implement them. And so for most people, those steps in between free content and high value, high ticket product are missing. And there's no way for somebody to engage at different places depending on where they're comfortable.
Now, that's something where you see some of the big dogs skip that, the guys that are crushing it, but that's because you follow Brad Lee on Instagram. He is a rock star putting out, every time you pick up your phone, over and over and over again, guys provide value dozens of times. Every time you pick up your phone, you'll see him. But that providing value, do you think that shortens the number of touch points that you've got to have where they don't have to really walk up that value ladder? You go, yeah, I want to work with him. It's some ridiculous price, but heck yeah, I want to work with him. This is the expert. Obviously, I'm seeing him every day.
Yeah, the challenge is not everybody's Brad Lee, right? Not everybody has that presence and the library of content that has already built his authority and established his trust with his audience. You need to have those steps to establish that trust and move somebody further and further up your product ladder. And which is why you need to have all the different phases. If you look at like an Amy Porterfield as an example, I'm a huge fan, and she has done an exceptional job of this, where she's providing value through her podcast or through her newsletter, in a lot of different ways. And it moves people into a course and then into a group and then into, one-on-one coaching and consulting. And it's a system that works incredibly well. And it's a philosophy where you are just trying to find as many touch points as possible to build trust, microtransactions of trust, while giving as much value to those individuals as possible, because the majority of people start out in DIY, and you have to move them from DIY to done with you to done for you, right? And it's that process of establishing trust and giving a high return on investment that is going to drive them towards the highest product or highest ticket product on your shelf.
This interview is sponsored by Newswire magazine. We celebrate the entrepreneurs and thought leaders shaping the future, those who don't just adapt, but innovate, who inspire others to think bigger, lead boldly, and create lasting change. Only a select few are featured in Newswire magazine, and for those who earn a place on the cover, the opportunities are unmatched. Your story shared with a global audience, your achievements celebrated on national billboards, reaching millions. Every leader has a story. Every vision deserves a platform. Who will rise to the top? Stay tuned. You're witnessing greatness unfold.
Hey, welcome back to Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. We're on with Warren Miles Pickup. Warren, what are some practical tips for building a brand that benefits both the owner and the people it serves?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say practical tips would really be taking a step back and understanding who your ideal client profile is and the pain points that they're facing. Your brand needs to signify that you understand who they are and what their pain is and why you're solving it. The Simon Sinek model of start with why is very, very important when you're dealing with branding, because it has to be identifiable and really clear to the individuals that you're going to be working with, that you are the authority in solving their particular problem, not just a general problem out in the world, but their problem so that they see themselves through the face of your brand.
Now, I was reading online that between Pixel True, Pixel Copy, and Pixel Publishing, you've got a team of nearly 100 employees.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, it's a little over that.
Okay. And what's been the key to keeping the culture strong as business scales? Culture is massive.
Really good leadership internally. So we've hired some incredible people, Liz and Genesis being kind of the core of that. And they're great leaders. They have an owner's mindset. So I can be out having these conversations, promoting the business, thinking strategically while they maintain the culture. They're getting together all next month for an employee meetup, because all of our people are remote. They're all over the place, whether they're in the United States or in Canada or in the Philippines or Indonesia. And so they do a really good job of making sure that they're checking in with all of the team members. We have team events like at Christmas. We'll have a digital Christmas party and sing karaoke, that sort of thing. It's really about keeping that regular communication going, where it's not just one-on-one, me and one employee. It's us getting together as groups to share ideas and to ensure that we're really focusing on the core problems of our clients and talking about the people that we're working with, sharing ideas and really making sure that we're embracing the passion to solve those problems. That's the core of the culture, is really about solving that problem rather than it being about sales competitions or anything like that. It's about how do we fix the problems that are out there for the people that we want to work with.
Yeah, if you solve enough problems for enough people, you never have to worry about gaining new clients. So.
Yeah. It tends to be, kind of what is it, like an escalator? It's just constantly feeding new clients into the business.
Well, and at a point, if you're listening to this right now, watching this on Amazon Fire TV, or maybe you're reading the article in Newswire magazine, that's something where if you are kind of struggling, just trying to get started to where someday you could be able to afford to work with a company like Warren's, that's a huge thing where if you stop, we see so many times entrepreneurs trying to create a new product or course or some type of widget that people don't really need, and then spending a ton of money on advertising, trying to market this junk that nobody needs. But I love that. Just solve a problem, make it easily accessible, and make sure that you are the person that everybody knows is the expert on solving that problem. You never got to worry about it. How do you manage work-life balance with running multiple companies and being a father of 3?
That's a great question. It's probably one that my wife would love to hear an answer to as well. I try to make sure that I am getting off of my computer at 4 or 5 o'clock every single day. I will get back on after the kids are in bed, but I really try to make sure that I'm stepping away from the business for a number of hours during the day. I also block off in the mornings when I'm helping to get the kids out of the house, get them to school, those sorts of things. And then on the weekends, it's our time. It's family time. I used to travel a lot. A big part of the reason that I left my previous career was because I was in hotel rooms for a third of the year and I was gone all the time. Now I'm home every day and I block off time to go and do things for the kids, horseback riding lessons, soccer, all those sorts of things. So I'm making sure that time is just as prominently put in my calendar as a client meeting is. They take priority. So they're all blocked in there 3 months in advance so that nothing ever gets booked over top of those. And I would rather defer a client meeting knowing that I can solve that problem tomorrow over canceling something that I have with my kids.
I love that. And I probably should have asked you this before we went live on our video interview. But if we end up working together on publishing you in Newswire magazine, putting you on billboards and stuff, is there, what I think would be great to be able to offer here is put a call to action at the bottom of that Newswire magazine article that has people, rather than getting them information about your services, would you be able to do a free discovery call from
Absolutely.
from that lead form?
Yeah.
Cool. So that's up there.
I love meeting new people. So I'm happy to meet anybody that has an issue. I mean, that's that whole value first idea, right? Is if I can get on a call with somebody for an hour, I could solve 3 or 4 of their problems in that hour. I know they're going to come back to me because they got a better ROI out of that conversation than I did. And so they know that the next step they take with me is going to be the same way.
I love that. Yeah. Provide more for free than people ever expect to get from what they pay.
Yeah.
Is massive. You mentioned leading with passion and curiosity. How do those traits influence your daily decision making?
Oh, and entirely. They're 2 of the biggest drivers. Passion is what really drives a lot of what we do, is, a passion to solve problems, a passion to help people be successful. It is so incredibly rewarding when somebody comes back and talks about the success that they've had because of the changes that we've made. I mean, it goes beyond just building a high converting website, right? It's about addressing real problems inside of their business and understanding where there are gaps in their overall marketing process and that sort of thing. And we were working with a company out of Las Vegas, a florist company, and they're heavily constrained by this operating system that they have called Teleflora. And so we went in and we figured out how can we implement a lot of these heuristics and cognitive bias changes on their website while being within this constrained system. We did all that and we got an understanding of where they wanted to take their business, what the true goals were, who they wanted to be serving, that sort of thing, and changed their overall website. And all of a sudden they increased their conversions by over 300%. Not only that, but they had a 128% increase in time on page. Their SEO skyrocketed because now people were spending longer there. They were visiting more pages. They were clicking more, and so everything changed for this business that was struggling to convert people that they're paying all this money in Facebook ads and that kind of stuff, driving traffic to it. And the business just exploded. And the owner called me back and he was just so grateful that we had totally changed his life, because now, he's hiring new drivers, he's hiring new florists and all of that to take on all this new business. And that was an incredible feeling for me. And it was about, being passionate about solving his problem, but also being curious enough to understand what they really wanted out of the business. What were the key pieces that they wanted to accomplish? It wasn't just about more sales. It was that they wanted to hire more people, that they wanted to build out their wedding business. And so we were able to build a site that really fed into the aspects of the business that they enjoyed, not just the pieces that were going to be the easiest to convert.
That's a huge mistake that I made years and years ago. I wouldn't share this if this happened yesterday, but back when I did web design and stuff, I had a guy that had a real small little trucking company. He had bought a used, like a tractor trailer truck, and ended up with a second one, but he never wanted to hire an employee. Didn't want to do, all he wanted to do is just drive enough to be able to have some good income. He's traveling across the country, picking up cool hot rod cars. And he just wanted to be able to have enough to survive. And as we were sitting down, I kept going, man, we could add this SMS feature here. They click here to send you an automated pre-populated text that would, here's a CTA. We could get people in there with, or a lead magnet with the drip feed follow up. And the more we talked, the more stressed and bummed out he got. And he's like, I don't even know if I need a website. But what I'm looking at back at now is the guy he needed basically just a landing page with his phone number on it. just to prove that he existed. And everybody, he did not want to sign up a single client off of that website. He was handing out business cards, shaking hands. He said, I don't work with people that I don't love, people that I don't want to work with. So he didn't want to sign up with anybody. And here I was as the web designer trying to make it to where he could just blow up, buy more trucks, hire employees. And that is not the life that I want. That's not the goals I'm trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
What is one thing that you wish more entrepreneurs understood about personal branding?
Oh, how necessary it is. That a faceless organization is one that people are suspicious of. There's a reason that people are suspicious of corporations today, is because they have become faceless and they don't take accountability for their actions. Whereas an organization that has a personal brand behind it tends to be much more, they follow through with what they're saying. And so that personal brand showcases that your company is real, that it it connects with individuals. It's going to take responsibility for everything and anything that it does. And that's how we feel, or I feel, about our organization. If something goes wrong, we're going to make it right. I don't want a negative review anywhere for Pixel True. Whether it's repaying money, whether it's continuing to do the work until it's right, we're going to make sure that, those individuals that deal with us get exactly what they want when they walk away.
And then I know this is not supposed to be covered here, but tell me about the Flawed Dad's Guide to Parenting.
Okay. So Flawed Dad's Guide to Parenting podcast was something that my business partner and I started back in during COVID. So I have a daughter who has some mental health concerns. And during that period, she was experiencing a desire to self-harm. And so there was a lot of stuff coming up during that. My business partner is a friend of mine for the last 20 years. We went to university together. We were in a fraternity together. We're very close. And we were spending a lot of nights staying up late, having a drink, talking through the issues of parenting and the challenges. And we wound up spending a lot of the time, as much as serious as the issues were and as challenging as the conversations were, we spent a lot of time laughing. And we thought, you know what, why don't we just share this with the world? Because it's something that other dads who are going through tough times can really identify with. And so we started recording the podcast. We did a little over 50 episodes. It's got, I don't know, 70 or 80,000 downloads at this point. And it was a great experience. I learned more about parenting during creating those 50 episodes than I ever had before, no matter how many books I read or anything like that. If you take an hour a week to specifically focus on one topic, you are going to become better at it. It's inevitable. And so it was incredibly impactful in my relationship with my girls. And I realized the amount of things that I needed to change and to do better. But it was really about embracing being flawed, that none of us are perfect. In any format of our lives, none of us are perfect. And so we were embracing that idea of being flawed and always having the drive to improve. So that was the entire idea of the podcast. And it was a lot of fun. We debate whether we should start it back up again, but we're busy enough with things that we don't need another project on our plates.
Yeah, I got you. Talking about the podcast and being a dad, what lessons from parenting have helped you become a better leader in business?
Oh, patience and understanding that everybody's situation is completely different and that you have no idea what's going on behind the computer screen, right? That, somebody who puts on a brave face sitting there talking to you about challenges that they're facing with their business may have a ton of other things going on behind the scenes that are impacting their ability to make decisions or are impacting the thought process that they have inside of their business. And so it's so important to be patient with individuals. Just because they didn't respond to you about your proposal this week doesn't mean that they're saying no to it. That they may just have other things going on. And so to never make those assumptions about why somebody is or is not doing business with you, to have patience in the process and to treat everybody like they are human beings and not cogs in a machine. Because the reality is that we all have excrement going on in our backyard that we're trying to deal with.
How do you know when it's time to pivot in business or in life? You made a massive pivot early on. So
That's a really good question. I would say in business, it's usually more clear than it is in life. In business, it's when you're no longer meeting the needs of your ideal client profile, or your ideal client profile is no longer your ideal client. When that is the person you no longer want to serve because you no longer identify with them, or you're not interested in helping those people anymore, you know that you need to change. If what you're doing is no longer solving the problem, then you have to pivot. Or if there is a better solution than what you're providing, it's time to change. In personal life, I mean, my story is that I came home and I asked my wife, if you met me today, would you still marry me? And her answer was no. That was when I knew I had to pivot. It was a heavy question, but it changed my entire life, and I knew from that point that I had to do things differently from the way I was.
man, that takes guts to ask.
It was not fun. It was a really painful conversation, but you know what? It led to us still being married today, because I took it to heart and made the changes that I needed to make.
That's powerful. If you're watching this on Amazon Fire TV right now, and especially if we end up promoting you Newswire magazine, scroll down, click the call to action, schedule a call, whether or not you're even at a financial point yet to be able to work with him, or if there's something where Warren doesn't find you the right fit for the business to work with. I think there's a ton that you can gain out of this, just doing a free discovery call with him and getting connected and seeing how you could maybe help each other out. Final question for you, Warren. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received that still guides you today?
How do I pick just one? I would say, my dad repeats this constantly, is don't burn your bridges, because you never know who's going to be your boss. I have taken that very seriously, where, as we all do, we have relationships that go sideways, whether they're business or personal or anything like that. My last name is Miles Pickup. There's 8 of us in the entire world. We're very protective of our reputation, and it's really easy to find us if something goes wrong. And so we're very cautious about what we do, what we say, and the relationships that we have. And not burning my bridges has resulted in more positive business, because when a relationship does go sideways, I try to handle it with as much professionalism and courtesy and kindness as I can, that it doesn't give people the opportunity to bad talk or to besmirch our name or anything like that. And they actually appreciate, you know what, he handled it pretty well. Like, he was very clear about why it was no longer working, why we needed to move a different direction. And, I don't hold anything against him for doing that. So relationships end for any number of reasons, but as long as you handle it in a way where you could always walk back to that person, you could be walking past them, on the street, and you could say hi. That's the way that you want to end a relationship, rather than blowing it up. I know it feels good at the time to really stick a dynamite in it and watch it blow, but it is so bad for you in the long run. It has consequences, far-reaching consequences, like the butterfly effect. That person knows a person who knows a person who is going to be a potential client in the future and is going to have heard something negative about you.
Man, I sure appreciate you for being on the show today. This has just been a great conversation. And if I ever run into you in public, we'll probably end up being good buddies, I think.
I would love that. That would be fantastic. I'd really enjoy it.
Awesome, brother. Thanks for being on the show today, Warren.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for watching Success, Motivation, and Inspiration. This episode was designed to help you level up. See you next time.